In one lecture that Srila Prabhupada was giving, I believe it was in New York in 1966, he reminds us of how precious life is. We can appreciate the preciousness of life itself according to how we appreciate how precious every moment of our time is. If we waste a moment, we cannot buy back that moment with all the gold in the entirety of the world. Time is so powerful. It is in the process of extinguishing the sun, drying up all the oceans, the rivers, and the lakes. It's in the process of pulverizing all the planets in creation. What to speak of our little bodies? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Kalosmi, time I am. In this context, he is revealing to all of us through the Bhagavad Gita how whoever we are, however learned, however healthy and strong, however wealthy, however famous or influential, however skilled, time devours everything. And so instructive that in many cases, relative to our particular state of consciousness, time's influence is imperceptible. But yet, it is always moving forward. If Krishna tells us, time I am, this gives us an understanding of how we should respect time, because time is an energy of God, a manifestation of God. To appreciate Krishna, to appreciate how he reveals himself to us, is how we make spiritual progress. When we come before the altar within a temple, we're very careful what we speak, what we do, how we relate with other people. For many, we bow down when we come before the altar of the temple, because we understand God's presence is especially there. In 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna personally declares that he is time. That means each moment is God's gift to us. And we have the free will to reciprocate with that gift, that time in the day, to hear about, to glorify, to render loving service, to remember the Supreme Lord, then with every rising and setting of the sun, we come closer to eternal life. Nahanyate hanyamane saride. The soul is eternal. It can never be cut by weapons, moistened by water, burnt by fire. It cannot be affected even by time itself. Janma mritya jara vyahi. That birth, old age, disease, and death are inevitable for everyone because we are all in this material existence under the control of time. In reality, mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. The eternal soul is part of God. Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of ecstatic love. That is who we've always been, who we are, and who we will always be. Time controls us in this material world. It is Krishna's energy. And no one can resist being controlled by time. History is a long list of names of people who were born, they did something in their lives, and then physically they died. This very minute amount of time that each of us have to live comes and goes. In the context of eternity, it hardly exists. Srila Prabhupada cites that there are certain insects that are born at the time of sunset, and they go through an entire life cycle of childhood, adolescence, middle age, old age, and death before the next sunrise. To them, those little insects, 12 hours has the same experience as 100 years has for us. It is relative. There are trees that live 5,000-6,000 years or more. The same spirit is living with awareness within. And the Vedic literatures tell us in the higher planetary systems there are devatas who live extraordinary long lives. The Lord Brahma, it describes, lives 311 trillion years. Yet relative to him, his life is very similar to 80, 90, 100 years of our life. Except he doesn't even have to grow old or get diseased. He just appears and then goes away. It is a preliminary understanding to making real spiritual advancement, to be humble. And a realistic beginning of humility is to appreciate that there are always higher powers controlling us. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. The nature of this higher power of time in this world is there's danger at every step. Srila Prabhupada beautifully writes that suffering, old age, and the coming of closeness to death is an impetus to seek eternal life. Daivihe gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mame vamye prapadyante mayame tatarantite. This material existence, which is conducted by the three modes of material nature, sattvaguna, tamaguna, rajaguna, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And those three modes of material nature are activated by God through his energy of time. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes at the beginning of creation, these gunas, these three modes are in their latent state until Krishna glances upon the Mahatattva and activates the modes of nature with time. In this way, because time is the underlying principle of the energy of all the creation, everything is always changing. Nothing is stagnant, not even for a moment. We may see how it's changing, or it may be imperceptible to our particular senses. But everything is constantly changing because everything is under the control of time. To honor time, to respect time, is to utilize each moment according to the will of the very source of time. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Whatever our role in society, whatever our sex or our race or our religion or our age or our social background, these things are all just ever-changing superficialities. Unless we understand their purpose. The purpose is to please God, to live in harmony with God. And Bhakti, Krishna tells in Gita that to live in harmony with God is to love God. From a spiritual perspective, the only true and eternal principle of harmony is love.
You were listening to Radhanath Swami on devotionalnectar.com.